it's like you just said, you are now entertaining free agents. You're entertaining free agents even before they ever step on a campus, whether it's Ohio State or whether it's Miami or it's Texas or it's Oklahoma or whoever it might be, USC. And that's kind of where we are. But the weekend overall, I don't know what they used to spend. I don't really know, because you can bring somebody in, pay for their airline tickets and other family members. You could pay for the hotel rooms. You could pay for their meals. You could pay for entertainment. But, I saw that $280,000. I'm sure most people went, oh, my God. I don't know what they used to spend. Was it $75,000? I don't know.
What is the 284 you're saying?
$280,000 on 9 recruits during the same weekend visit as Arch Manning. According to Sam Kahn, he had receipts, too. They had 4 commitments from that weekend. Among the highlights, a full spread in their rooms at the Four Seasons Austin, which is one of the nicest hotels in Austin. Also a photo shoot at DKR, Texas. They do that now with recruits.
These
recruits. A trip to driving range at Topgolf, lavish meals, breakfast at the home of head coach Steve Sarkisian, along with, of course, the entertainment, open bar, and other with the parents and others around a part of the visit.
For those that don't know, I absolutely hate being on camera. Like I would love to just, you'd only hear my voice, but I don't relate at all. But these folks these days, man, they love their photo shoots, don't they? Everybody just loves pictures. They love pictures and photos so much. But yeah, the photo shoot thing, that's mandatory on every visit, is getting the light show and all that, and the uniforms, and even getting the parents in the uniforms sometimes. And that's a huge part of their experience, it seems like.
Well, and they had different setups around the stadium so they could get more players, so they don't get bored waiting for somebody else to get the pictures and whatever. I'm so frustrated right now because the guy 213, who's always pretty good, we don't always agree, but he made a good point. His point was this, I'll try to just remember it, that Manning is not a player or a recruit, he's a brand.
Yeah.
And so that brand to UT and what they've gotten since then, and the recruits they've received since then, are the commitments, and what they may get for 2, 3, 4, 5 years is worth every nickel of the $280,000 among the other players he's committed to.
If he, just by their going there, they probably get four times ROI just by him going there and the attention they got. If they win when he's there, it's like 50 times ROI, and because that's so big. But I do, like, it's funny to me though, like now, and like you'll stop hearing schools protest it, but this comes out, like if you're going to spend $280,000 to get a few guys there, you can just go ahead and put them on salary. Like it's like ridiculous.
I just said, they're basically we're paying players. They're buying players at this point. I mean, that's just reinforcing what I was just talking about.
Absolutely.
That's why there's big money flowing to Josh Heupel after a couple wins. Is just the money's, it's got to go somewhere, and now it's going to be going straight to recruits. But yeah, like the photo shoot and the nice fancy dinner and the locker room tours and all that. Like we've seen that go on for years. I don't think we've ever seen like a total like what the visit cost though. Like that's kind of strange to me.
I would like to know that somehow, and somebody now needs to follow up this story with what did they used to spend? Was it half of that, 2/3 of that, 1/10 of it? Or I don't know.
What did they spend on Colt McCoy or Vince Young?
Yeah. Okay. Here's
not that. I don't know how much I want that to be like a regular thing now, to where we're comparing. Well, Michigan spent $350,000 on there. And like because everything's a freaking comparison. But yeah, I mean that's interesting that they're dropping $250,000 on less than 10 recruits to keep them entertained and hopefully get them in burnt orange. That's where we are.
If you can do it and you have the money to do it, good for you. It's just good for you. I mean, if it's available and you can, then do it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and cut off the people who are like, you don't want people to get paid. It's like, no, it's just we're having our brains swimming around in how many zeros are dropped on just weekend visits, much less the rest of the process. But yeah, that's basically where we are now, and that's probably going to become the norm. But to your thing about Arch, that's like you can watch his tape, and I'm not an X's and O's expert or anything, so I don't pretend to like watch his tape and know that he's going to be this or he's going to be that. Like you see talent, you also see the criticisms that some people have, which is, it doesn't look like he's playing the best competition, even if that's the same high school that other greats have come from. That's one thing, but you watch him and you're like, I'm kind of not real impressed with who he's playing, but quarterback gurus or X's and O's guys can watch him and his mechanics and all that and tell you like how great he's going to be or how great he already is, and you trust in that. But overall, yeah, the reason why he's such a big deal has nothing to do with what he's done on the field. Has zero to do with that. It's his last name.
Well,
it's his last name and his.
Yeah, I mean, his talent level has to have something to do with that.
Okay, I mean, it has something to do with it, but it's mostly his name, and now. Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. I wasn't trying to make it a thing.
630,000 over a couple of weekends. However, athletic director Yu published NCAA financial reports that showed UT spent $1.275 million on recruiting to 2019 fiscal year. That was the 13th most on the recruiting trail that year, led by Georgia's nearly $3.7 million. Oh. This story only is because they had some receipts and things like that, and they were able to find the information.
They did some Freedom of Information Act.
Bulldogs spent $2.7 million in 2020.
And that's only because they weren't allowed to have people there. They weren't allowed to have people there. Nobody is going to outspend Kirby Smart in recruiting. That dude is he's the guy who decided to change the rules of the cocktail party when it was recruiting. Like, no, I'm having recruits. Our year, I'm going to have recruits. You can have recruits on your year. I don't care because I'm going to recruit as much as I can.
Billy Napier at Florida received an extra $700,000 for the recruiting budget this year. That's a 55% increase. That gave him close to a $2 million budget. That does not include any of Napier's access to 2 private jets with a budget of $839,000. So that's interesting. It's just another part of college football and college athletics. If you have it, you can use it. Then, my God, make sure you use every nickel of it if you can.
I want to clarify before we get like somebody that snips a 10-second piece on Arch Manning is, yes, he has some level of talent on the field. I think that said zero, but I think that's not really what I intended. But
and that's why I wish I could reach that text because it would.
But 80% of Arch Manning is, absolutely the name and the brand and the fact that he's got pull with recruits and all of that. That's the majority of it. It's not that he's necessarily the bona fide, undisputed #1 player in the country and he's the savior as a player. It's Arch Manning. It's the name. It's the things brand that come with that. And it's the brand. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear from that recruiting piece that Georgia and Texas have a lot of money to spend on recruiting. Imagine that.
Paul, read that text from the 213.
Yeah. Manning is a brand, not a player. If Arch Manning pans out, he'd be worth well over $1 million per game in UT marketing, ad buys, interviews of family, Manning brand add-ons, recruiting girls, the SEC, etc. The money risk for recruiting him was negligible for what they will get in return. He does not need to win the Heisman or even be an All-American. He's a Manning. That is all that is needed. UT did well going after the Manning brand. They got it and will serve them very well. Big-time football requires big-time risky investments.
I had somebody text me and ask me this question. Do you feel like the start of the NIL perhaps allowed Texas to reboot maybe a year or two earlier than they were, although they were still getting top 5 classes? They were still getting top 5 classes. It really did help solidify what they did for the class of 2022, especially with the offensive linemen and whatever they're doing now with the class of 23 with Arch and others. Yeah, but they always were getting top 5 or 10 or not top 2 or 3 or top class. It might have just helped them get back into a little bit of a booster drive.
No, them absolutely saying we'll pay $50,000 to offensive linemen who want to come play here, and they end up with probably one of their best offensive line classes ever. I don't think it's coincidence, even if they do recruit. They recruit really well, but somehow they had missed tremendously on their offensive line recruiting. That was a weakness, right? No matter how top 5, how many top 10, they did not have a good O-line. They changed that this offseason, and part of that was we'll pay $50,000 for offensive lineman, and Kelvin Banks flipped from Oregon eventually. Now, I don't know if one had to do with the other or if that was ultimately going to happen anyways, but I do think it played a role. I do think NIL plays a role in terms of just, knowing kind of what's coming and knowing who's got what and who's willing to spend. They're clearly willing to spend. Georgia's willing to spend. Bama's willing to spend. There's some that are and some that clearly aren't. And I do think, there's absolutely an advantage. Even if you were #1 every year, there's still an advantage because you're going against others that are doing the same thing. And if you're beating them out, there's got to be some advantage to that, I think.
All right, we'll come back with more. 254-339-1122 is the text line.
Yeah, but Texas's problem, which they will have to solve under Steve Sarkisian, is they get all, the seeds in the crop.
Yeah, but
they just don't know how to water it.
They've had highly ranked offensive line classes, and at times you've kind of wondered about, was it because? And hey, this has allowed them to kickstart what they're doing. We saw a little bit, maybe we saw a little bit of that, who they have with what they did against Alabama Saturday. Much more to get to. Good for them, or anyone, if you can. Use it if it's part of what you can do. And they surely did that one weekend among some others. But Georgia, of course, right there. Before you go, oh, my God, Texas is outspending everybody. Georgia goes, wait a minute, hold my beer.
Yeah, I don't even care what Texas is spending. I mean, like, if you would ask me, like, who's spending the most on recruiting, that's two of the top three I probably would have mentioned. So I don't think that that's really a shock. But it is, I guess, maybe the totals are surprising to people. And, yeah, if you got it, spend it. But going back to the Arch Manning thing real quick, I don't have absolutely, that was a brand get more than anything else. I think the problem that people have, though, when they criticize it is not that Texas is using it as a brand or that they obtained the Manning brand. It's that they're also being told he's the number one top player in the country. And people are watching this film and going, no, he's not. Like, there's no way he's the number one player in the country. He's not even the number one quarterback. And now, granted, Joe in Tuscaloosa, who's evaluating, may not have a great football film eye, but there are people that do that are like, I don't know if he's the number one overall. And that's where I think the problem comes in for some people is like, nothing against him, nothing against Texas for getting him, nothing against Texas for being proud they got him. Just don't tell us he's also the number one guy, because that's when you feel like
but according to some of the rating services that we do look at, he is to one of them, right?
And that's where people get suspicious, my point that I was trying to get to, is that, like, yeah, he's great. He's a 4. He's a high 4, but don't tell me he's the number one player in the country. And that's where the debate comes. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's where the debate comes in on Arch. Well, that's where it comes in.
The rating services that want to recruit or want to put people up at certain numbers, they're the ones that have this evidence. It's like film. And those, you see those, where are they 5 years later? And we'll see where he is in a couple of years. All right, when we come back, much more to get to.